Welcome to GameLink Legends, where speed meets strategy and every game is a new battleground. Today, it's not just a race, it's a war of icons. Beauty versus beast versus brute. 5 insanely tuned sports sedans, different countries, different power philosophies. One track, one clock, no excuses. This is the ultimate time attack showdown, and only one machine will conquer the timesheet. 2015 Jaguar XES, the British underdog. Quiet, sophisticated, deadly. From the UK comes a tuned XES with 680 horses and the roar of a wildcat. At just over 1,400 kilograms, it may not be the most powerful, but agility is its secret weapon. 2021 BMW M3 competition, the Bavarian assassin. Precision, power, perfection. From Germany, the M3 competition doesn't just chase lap times, it dissects them. With 938 horsepower, 1,139 Newton-meters of torque, and a trim 1,418 kilogram frame, it's the sniper in a race of cannons. 2015 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, the American sledgehammer. From the land of muscle and mayhem, the USA, this isn't just a Hellcat, it's a fire-breathing dragon. 1,050 horsepower, 1,225 Newton-meters of torque, and enough displacement to power a small plane. At 1,691 kilograms, it's no featherweight, but when this beast roars, it moves mountains. 2017 Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, the Italian Tempest. Built in Italy, tuned by passion, the Giulia Quadrifoglio is a seductive killer with 1,041 horsepower and 1,112 Newton-meters, packed into a 1,410 kilogram body of rolling art. Don't let the beauty fool you. This is a serpent with venom. 2016 Cadillac CTS-V sedan, the Detroit juggernaut. Big block, big torque, big trouble. Straight from Cadillac's performance division, this CTS-V throws down 888 horsepower and a monstrous 1,042 Newton-meters. At 1,491 kilograms, it's a steel fist in a leather glove. 5 warriors, 1 mission. Beat the clock. The track awaits. Let the battle begin. The XE was Jaguar's attempt to take on the BMW 3 Series. Launched in 2015, the XES variant featured a supercharged V6 shared with the F-Type. It wasn't the loudest in the segment, but it offered balance, beauty, and old-school rear-wheel drive purity. Fun fact, the XE was the first Jaguar built on their all-new aluminum-intensive platform, giving it a lightweight edge and sharper handling than most people expected. Jaguar XES, the British underdog. Clean lines, crisp response. The Jag's not the loudest, but it's sneaky fast. Not brute power, but it's slicing time in the tight sections with surgical precision. The quiet hunter strikes. The Jaguar XES delivers a smooth, composed 553.082, an elegant lap from a dark horse contender. When Dodge dropped the Hellcat in 2015, it shook the automotive world. With over 700 horsepower from the factory, it made modern muscle cool again and terrifying. It was built to dominate in a straight line and leave a trail of tire smoke doing it. Fun fact, at full throttle, the Hellcat supercharger gulps in 30,000 liters of air per minute, enough to drain a decent-sized room of oxygen in less than a minute. It's less a car, more a mobile air pump of doom. Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, the American sledgehammer. The Hellcat's throwing fire at the tarmac. It's more muscle car than track car, but somehow it's holding its own, barely caged chaos in every straight. Thunder on wheels. The Hellcat blasts through the finish with a raw and raging 553.736, just behind the Jag. But what a show of strength. Born in 2015, the Giulia Quadrifoglio marked Alfa Romeo's return to form. It was a bold move. This was the first rear-wheel drive Alfa in decades, and it came armed with a Ferrari-derived twin-turbo V6. It was Italy's way of saying, we still build drivers' cars. Fun fact, the Quadrifoglio badge, a green four-leaf clover, dates back to 1923 and was first used by Alfa Romeo race driver Ugo Sivocci as a good luck charm. Tragically, when the clover wasn't painted on his car for a later race, he died in a crash. Since then, it's become a permanent symbol of Alfa's racing spirit. Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, the Italian Tempest. Look at that agility. The Alfa's dancing through the corners like it's on rails. Surgical steering, explosive exits. It's got rhythm and rage. Absolute fury wrapped in elegance. The Alfa tears across the line at 537.409, a lap that redefines fast and fearless. The M3 legacy began in 1986 as a homologation special for Group A touring car racing. It evolved into a cultural icon, balancing precision, everyday usability, and motorsport DNA. The G80 Generation M3 competition took that formula and turned it up to 11 with AWD, a turbo straight six, and brute force. Fun fact, this is the first M3 in history to feature optional X-Drive all-wheel drive. Controversial, yes, but it makes the car significantly quicker on the track and the street. Precision with power. The M3 clocks in at 546.645, a methodical masterclass in German engineering under pressure. Launched in 2004, the CTS-V was Cadillac's not-so-subtle middle finger to the European sports sedan market. By the time the 2016 third gen rolled out, it had Corvette Z06 DNA, supercharged V8, magnetic dampers, and Nürburgring-tested handling. Fun fact, the 2016 CTS-V had a top speed of 200 miles per hour, making it the fastest production Cadillac ever built, and one of the most powerful sedans in the world at the time. Cadillac CTS-V, the Detroit juggernaut. You can hear the CTS-V growl out of every corner. That torque is unreal, but it's wrestling the weight. It's a brute force ballet, and every slide counts. The American juggernaut storms the finish. The CTS-V lays down a ferocious 5.48906, making brute force look deceptively quick. 5 machines, 1 missions, and every one of them left its rubber on the track. But this wasn't just about speed, it was about soul. The Dodge Hellcat came in hot and heavy, throwing down American muscle with a fire-breathing fury. The Jaguar XES kept things clean, quiet, and shockingly quick. Grace under throttle. The Cadillac CTS-V delivered a storm of torque and determination. Brawny, bold, and brutally fast. The BMW M3 was sharp, calculated, and relentless. A disciplined attack from start to finish. But the machine that dominated the clock was Italian. The Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio didn't just run the lap, it conquered it, soaring to a stunning 5 minutes, 37.409 seconds. So here's how it all shook out. First, Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. Second, BMW M3 competition. Third, Cadillac CTS-V. Fourth, Jaguar XES. Fifth, Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. From elegance to aggression, this was more than a race. It was a test of identity, engineering, and instinct. You're watching GameLink Legends, where we don't just play games, we chase greatness, one legend at a time. Which machine earned your respect? Let us know in the comments, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next battle could be on wheels, wings, or in worlds beyond.